Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the miracle stories that are happening right here in our own city, in our own state, every day. My name is Tony Kausha, and the title of our show is Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. Please note, this show is not about religion, and we're not trying to change anyone's religion, and we're not trying to get you to join any religion. It's just about miracle stories. I don't know of any religion on the planet that doesn't talk about miracles. That's why religions begin, because they have something that's telling them there's really a God. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to just talk about miracles and leave the decisions about all that up to you. So we don't care what religion you are. We just want to talk about miracles. If you are an atheist, I think you'll enjoy the program as well, although I can't guarantee you'll remain an atheist very long after you hear many convincing stories, coincidence kinds of stories about miracles. You can email me your own stories if you wish. We'll try to use all we can on the show. I can't guarantee we will, depending on volume and time, but you're welcome to send your stories on to us, and we will mention them when we can. You can send them to the following email address. But please notice that if we do use your story, we won't mention your name. We'll keep you anonymous. And we suggest that in your story, when you send it to us, don't use your correct name. That way anyone listening will not be able to figure out that it was you that sent the story in. The email address you can send your stories to is very easy to remember. It consists of 2 words and 3 numbers. The first word is Tony, spelled Tony, and the second word is and, spelled A-N-D, and the numbers are 777. So once again, the name is Tony and 777 at AOL.com. Well, let us begin. Our first coincidence miracle today is from a woman who tells us her mother lost her eyesight at the age of 50, and at the age of 80, I guess they've been praying for her for many years, but at the age of 80, a prayer group at their local church agreed to pray for her, and at the age of 80, her eyesight was restored, and she was able to see her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren before she passed away. I don't know how long she lived after the age of 80, but sufficient to say we're hearing a story of where another prayer group, people who had prayed, there is a power in prayer and there is a God, and God can do whatever he wants. And when people pray, God hears. The Bible says that. So it's just great news. I mean, a lot of people pray and don't have miracles, but a lot of people pray and they do have miracles. And there's many stories where people pray and they don't get miracles, but they persist and they keep praying, and then they do get miracles. So sometimes if you're praying for a miracle and you don't get it at first blush, that doesn't mean you should stop. I know the Bible is clear about be persistent in your prayer. Sometimes I guess God wants to make sure you really believe and you really have faith, and maybe if your faith is not strong enough, then he waits until you really believe. I can't answer all these questions factually, but I'm just telling you my exposure over the last 54 years to hearing about miracles, that sometimes when you pray and you don't get your miracle, you just have to keep persisting. And there is a place in the Bible where Jesus says that it was persistence that got many people to get their miracles. Our next miracle is a woman who writes to us about she had a cyst develop on her ovary, and it burst, and it turns out that the test that they did discovered cancer, and their family, the whole family apparently went into serious prayer, and miraculously the cancer was cured. She doesn't explain what exactly happened about the cure, but she said that the prayers were answered and that her cancer was cured. So suffice to say, she's received a miracle, and she believes that it was the prayer group that obtained the miracle for her. This is probably a good place to remind everybody that when you say that you got a miracle, when you say that God did something for you in your life, and that's a miracle, whatever God does is a miracle, it doesn't matter what other people think. So that's very important. If you had to worry about what other people think, you'd never say you had a miracle. A miracle is simply stated as something that you know that God did, and that's all that is necessary for you to call it a miracle. If somebody wants to test it and check it and ask a lot of questions, well, that's fine, but that doesn't alter the fact that you know that you got a miracle. Our next coincidence miracle is from a daughter who writes to us that her father was in his 90s, and he was deathly sick in the hospital. He was in a coma. They had decided that there was nothing else they could do for him, and he was hooked up to some equipment. And so the doctors asked the family if they were ready to disconnect the equipment because the medical staff didn't feel they could do any more for the man. And the family was praying for his cure, and if not a cure, for his peaceful passing into heaven. And so the family agreed, and I guess the procedure is that the hospital asks people to come in and sign some forms and sign out the body, etc., for the funeral. So the family went in, and they had pulled the plugs, the equipment. The man was pronounced dead. The family arrives, and when they go in to sign the forms and pay their last respects to the body, it turns out they found him sitting up in bed and he was alive. So after they disconnected him from all the equipment, between that time and the time the family got there, he was cured. And the reason she is sharing this with us is because the family had something like a 15-year feud. There were arguments in the family about properties and who owned what properties. And because they were all praying for this man, who was apparently the oldest man in the family, they were all praying. This miracle has brought the family together in great celebration, and the feud has ended because they've been touched by God. So it's a wonderful twofold miracle. The man is disconnected from equipment and he comes back to life. Apparently he was laying there for hours after they disconnected him. After he was pronounced dead, he was laying there for hours. They find him alive when they go in, and that stops the feud. Our next coincidence miracle is kind of a beautiful story. A woman relates to us that her fiancé had given her his class ring, which was very precious to him, and she was wearing it sort of as an engagement ring. And she was with her family raking leaves in the fall, and the ring fell off of her finger and got lost in the leaves, and nobody noticed it for a while, and they were carting the leaves away during this process. Well, she was horrified when she saw that the ring was gone, so she panics, of course, and the whole family decided to say a prayer and then go looking for the ring, even if they had to bring all the leaves back. Apparently this ring was really pretty precious, so the family agreed to do this. Now, while they're saying the prayer, they saw a bright light, as if a spark of fire had started a fire in one of the leaf piles, and they went over to look at the bright light, and that's where the ring was. So if anybody doubts the power of prayer, they were praying for a ring in a pile of leaves. That's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. And when they're praying, some powerful, miraculous thing happens, and they see a bright light shining from underneath the leaves, and that's where the ring was. This certainly increases your faith in miracles, I've got to say that much. And it also proves the power of prayer as well. Our next miracle story reminds us that God is always sending ideas into our minds and into our hearts, inspirations, intuitions, talking to us, and that's the way he's nudging us and prompting us all day long. He can't talk to us directly because he gave us free will, and he doesn't disturb us because that would disturb our free will. But he does send us impulses in the form of ideos, inspirations, and that's why those words are called ideos, because deo is the Latin word for God, And that means that an idea is coming from God, because Deo means God, and inspiration means you're getting a thought from the Spirit of God. So this one woman relates to us how she was going in for an abortion. She was at the site. They were preparing her for it. And suddenly she got this uncontrollable movement within her being. She said now that she reflects on it, she knows that it was God, but she had this inspiration, idea, intuition that she should stop and she should leave and she should not have the abortion. And she wasn't married, and she had been advised by a lot of friends to get the abortion, and she thought she was doing the right thing up until this moment, and it just came over her so powerfully not to do it. She can't explain it, except she had this she just could not go through with it. Something was bothering her about doing it. And so she told the doctors and the nurses there that she changed her mind and she was leaving. And she said this was 20 years ago, and she had a son, and she is so happy that she did this because her son has become such an amazing person. He's had super great success in his schools and his studies. He's got a great career ahead of him. So she's so delighted that she did. She did get married later. She had 3 other children, and they all know about this abortion story. She didn't keep it hidden. She let everybody know because it was a miracle. She's certain it was a miracle, and she tells everybody to glorify God. Our next miracle story is about a man who had banged his head while he was doing some construction work around the house, and he wasn't feeling well, so he went to the doctor the next day to get it checked out. The doctor did some scans, some electronic scans, to check and see if there was any damage, and they found no damage from the bumping of the head, but they did find a tumor on the scan, a tumor in his head, and they did surgery, and they're happy to report that, based on the doctor's information, that the tumor was growing, and if they didn't catch it at this time, it would have caused serious damage. And so he, in a way, is saying that this banging of his head caused him to go to the doctor, and that was the miracle, because that's how God saved him. Our next miracle story is about a man who survived a 75-mile-per-hour car accident. He crashed into a tree. When the police arrived, he wasn't there because he had gotten out of the car somehow, and he was out walking on the highway somewhere looking for help. But the police were astonished that anybody had survived this, and they were busy out there looking for the survivor because there was nobody in the car. Our next miracle story is sent to us by a couple who went to the Feast of St. Anthony in Boston in the year 2020. And the couple, when they got there, they prayed for the soul of their dead sister, the woman's sister, the sister-in-law of the man, but she had just recently passed away, and they prayed for her soul to be entering into heaven. And they took a photograph at the feast, and there was a ray of light coming from the sky that just landed on both of them in the picture. So the picture indicates that God was answering their prayer. A white glow was coming down from heaven like a spotlight just shining on these two people, and that has convinced them that God was answering, that their prayer was being heard, and their sister had arrived in heaven and brought them great joy. So we've heard some great miracle stories today, great survival things, miraculous surgeries, etc. Really remarkable that we got all these in 1 week. So God bless you all. I'll talk to you again next week. Keep praying and doing what God tells you, and you'll experience miracles every day.